Well, it's Monday morning, and I think the whole country's in a cold snap. We're no different here. So I think today I'm going to get back on that 345, get it ready for an extended run. Or to do that, I'm going to need to get my radiator connected and get a working fan on there, get some coolant, and we should be set to go. It's nice and warm in the shop. I got 57 in here. It's a little bit cooler outside. It'll warm up today. Let's get going. All right, for starters, I need a few extra parts. I'm short belts for this to turn the water pump, a fan, and since I don't want to buy special belts, the belts I have go around the flywheel, around the crank, the water pump, and the alternator, so I'm going to have to pull the alternator off too. So I've already loosened up all these parts. I just need to break them out of here now. In order to get the fan out, I actually have to pull back the fan shroud. Here's a question. Somebody explain this to me. I've seen other fans like this too. They're not symmetrical. Got a big gap here, big gap here. These two blades are really close together. I have no idea why they make them like this. So if anybody knows the answer to that, punch it down in the comments. Alright, those belts are way too long. So this is the pulley that came on this spare engine I've been working on. This is a pulley that was on my existing truck. So I'm going to swap out the pulleys on this and then I should be able to use my belts. Still big. I got a feeling that my crank pulley is too small. As it turns out, those belts are still too large, and that's because this bottom crank pulley is also smaller. And I mean, this is a harmonic balancer, so I'm not going to be swapping that out. So what I did is put this back on. Went and looked up what size belts go on a 1969 345 that would have been in a pickup, because that's what this motor came out of. And it looks like they're about 4 inches shorter, so I ordered up those belts. I'll have to wait till those get in, but in the meantime, I can finish putting these parts on. Getting a little cold out in the garage, so I moved us into the wood shop. Now I had removed the radiator to just make it a little bit easier to put the pulley and the fan back on. Before I mount that radiator back up, I want to do a little bit of work with my transition just to make this easier while I have access. So this radiator that I'm using has 1.25 inches. Nope, that's 1.5 inches. It has 1.5 inches right there. That's the outer diameter on that. The international, both on the thermostat housing and down here on the water pump, is 2.25. So I need to make that transition. So I went to the home center. I was able to find a fitting in the plumbing section that is going to work for me. Now this one reads 1.5 inches by 1.25 inches. I measured it. This is the small end that reads 1.25 inches. This inner diameter is actually right around 1.5 inches, so it's just perfect for what I'm doing. This end is closer to 2 inches, maybe 1.75 inches, and this will work. And as you can see, I've already got this on. What I had to do is just get a heat gun, warm this up so it was very flexible, and then slide it up and over there. It's stretched enough to fit. So I'll be doing the same thing down here on the water pump. All right, I picked this up at the parts store. The guy was willing to kind of dig around and try to find me something. Now this is not going to fit the way it sits. This is just kind of material I can use. This is 1.5 inches. What I'm going to do is trim this flange off. I'll hook this to the bottom outlet on the radiator. I will keep this intact, and I'll actually use all the way up to this bend. Then I'm going to cut it here. And I'll use this next 90 to turn and bring it up. And then I'll use some of these pieces just as my unions. So I'll use most of what you see right here. And then where I have to do any bridging, I've got some conduit that, again, this is just temporary to run it. This isn't how it's going to be permanently mounted in the truck. But I'll use this conduit to join between these sections. This is what's left of that radiator hose I bought. That's pretty efficient. I've probably got about, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches of material left over, and this was the flare, so I couldn't even use that, so not too bad. Okay, we're all plumbed in. It's not pretty, and it's certainly not how I would do this thing permanently, but I think this will work fine for us to run an extended burn-in test. So we got that all set. Now I'm just waiting for fan belts, and once I get those in, we'll move on to the next step. We'll get the fan belts on. We'll get the radiator partially filled to test for leaks. If that looks good, we'll fill it up. We'll drag it outside, we'll hook everything up, and we'll run it. And my fan belts came in. I've got the fan belts on with my alternator. And I guess the next thing I want to do is fill up the radiator, check it for leaks, and if that all looks good, you know, we'll get the rest of the radiator filled and get some coolant flowing through this thing, and we'll burn it in. So I don't want to just use plain water. We're in Minnesota here, and I just would hate to have anything happen where it might freeze. So I'm looking for some antifreeze. And what I'm going to do is steal it from the truck. It's got to come out anyway before I can swap engines. So I'm going to drain a little bit of antifreeze out of the truck here and use that for my test run. I'm going to use a cement mixing tub here to catch the antifreeze, and it's kind of dirty, so just wind it with a plastic bag so this stuff is nice and clean. So far, got about half a gallon in there. Not leaking yet. Okay, that's 1 gallon. Nice and dry. Gallon 2. good. I think I'm going to leave it sit for a bit. It's the next morning. Just kind of taking a look at this. Everything looks dry. Don't see any sign of leaks. Looking at the engine, nothing in there. And I did fill this right to the top. So we've got about 5 gallons in here now, which I think is right around the advertised capacity. And down in there you can see the water still there. I haven't run it yet, so it hasn't really mixed well with that antifreeze I loaded in there to begin with. But so far I'm happy. This radiator the guy sold me, when he said it was a good one, he was truthful. So let's grab the battery, let's push this thing outside, and let's give it a run. All right, everything looked great except I noticed this right at the back, this oil right here. Looks like it's coming from around the area of the rear main seal. So let's tear it down and see what we got. All right, get the flex plate off. I'm checking right here. That's oil. And this is where I'd be looking for it. Looks like it's leaking there. And I don't know if it's coming off of where that seal meets. That's probably the case. So I think I'm probably going to have to pull this seal again, and I don't know, we'll take a look at it. I might need a speedy sleeve on this, I don't know. But everything else worked out great. I didn't see any other leaks. Pretty happy with the rest of it. All right, we're done with the burn-in, and I would call it successful. I was able to run this for an extended period of time. Make sure there weren't any funny sounds. It wasn't burning any oil. It sounded really good. Definitely got some tuning to do. We got to get some timing nailed down. I think the timing it's decent for now, but need to tune that, tune the carb, probably check points and a few other things. It sounded like it might have misfired a bit, but for the most part, I think it's great. Now, you look at this rear main that was leaking oil and you say, how is this successful? Well, that's exactly why I did a burn-in on this one. I wanted to make sure that if I had any issues, especially one like this, that I didn't discover those after it was in the truck. It's a lot easier to fix this now than once it's back in the truck. So that's why I'm calling it a successful test. So the next thing I'm going to do is just order up that rear main, and I'll probably pull this out first and just see what the crank looks like, and see if I need to get a sleeve for that. But we'll take care of that offline, and the next thing I'll do is go and start prepping the truck to pull the motor out of that. So thanks for sticking with me on this one.